Terri, thank you so much for joining us here at RiskMinds International. Now, what would you say is the most pressing risk? What's keeping risk managers awake at night at the moment? What are they saying to you?
I mean, one of the concerns I personally have is the amount of change we've been going through and that we keep going through. So one of the things I worry about is just change fatigue, because change requires people to be a little more risk aware, a little more engaged, change how they think, change how they do things. And we've had so much regulation. We have more coming. We have the LIBOR change, we have FRTB, we still have Brexit to get through. And I just worry, how long can we keep it up? And so change fatigue is one. I would say another concern is talent. Just, are we getting the right people into the firm? Are we getting the right people who have the right values? Is our culture strong enough? Across all of the financial industry, I think we've struggled to really clarify and identify our culture and then turn it into measurable things that we can then act upon. And so there's some challenges there. I mean, just to make it real, I'm concerned that our marketing video, our recruiting video for finance is Wolf of Wall Street. And if that's what's attracting people to the industry, we're not going to get the right culture.
And that's still your concern, even in 2019, that is the image that the industry is portraying, and that's damaging and to retaining and attracting the right talent.
I think it may be more the image that the media keeps alive than the reality today. But we have some great tone at the top. I'm just not sure it's trickled down well enough to the reality at the bottom. I mean, I'm in a really interesting position. I sit not only on boards of some of these big financial institutions, but I also lecture at universities. So I meet hundreds of students a year, many of whom come back and ask for career advice and talk to me about things that have happened to them. And the tone from the top is great, and it's great across many firms. Reality at the bottom is not 100% consistent with that. And it's anecdotal, to be fair, because I'm talking about students that I'm meeting and speaking to and who've spent 1 or 2 years in the industry. But I wouldn't say we've got it 100% right yet.
So what is the key to getting that cultural change and making sure that's right in firms?
Well, one of the things I think is that we better prepare people to be managers. You manage someone very soon after you start working. You start as an analyst, or you start as an intern, you become an analyst, you then work for a few years, and then maybe you get an analyst. Now, you become an associate, and then an analyst is working for you. Very quickly, we need to be teaching people how to manage other people. And if you don't have good examples of good management around you, then where are you going to learn? Most people aren't born managers, right? And I think it's a skill set we all have to learn. And frankly, we all have to work on and improve, and management styles change over time, and we have to keep up with that. And what young people expect, how they expect to be managed today, is very different from how I expected to be managed 25 years ago when I first started. And we have, as an industry, promoted people because of the bottom line, because of their performance, as opposed to their ability to manage people. And if you can't manage people well, then you can create a not great to a toxic culture.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you about. Why is good management key? What does it encourage in the boardroom, and what's key to making a company successful? You don't just want everybody in your company to think the same way.
Well, no, not at all. I think good management is the ability to encourage different points of view around the table and to have robust conversations around ideas. Bad decisions get made when a senior person walks in the room and says, I've got a great idea, and nobody is prepared to rebut it because, well, he's the senior person. But when you have a senior person who's prepared to encourage and expects diverse views to be brought up around the table, then his idea gets kicked around a bit, or somebody else's idea gets kicked around a bit, and then what emerges is a better decision overall. And that is it's a hard environment to work in, to put something forward and then know that it might be challenged. So you need someone who's managing it well, because it can easily become, people can become defensive, can become nervous about even putting anything forward if they feel that it's going to be challenged too heavily. So it's a balance, it's a delicate balance.
As somebody with great access to who is in this world and who are being promoted, what do you see in terms of the reality about diversity, and not just gender diversity, but that cognitive diversity of background?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the diversity initiatives, the diversity agenda at the moment it is focused on gender, it's focused on race, it's focused on social mobility and a number of other factors. And today, to be fair, while that's not necessarily diversity of thought, which is what we really want to get to, because many of those candidates, women and minorities, come from such a different background or such a different path to the top, actually what they do bring is diversity today. Now, hopefully in the future, what we'll get to is a point where we can't say you're diverse because of gender or race or background, but you're diverse because you think differently. And but today, that's where we are. The ultimate goal is diversity of thought. And we want people who are prepared to say, why would we do that? I don't understand, or that doesn't make sense to me. And they have that perspective because they haven't seen it before. They haven't been in a culture where everybody says this is how it's always happened, or they've had to work so hard to get where they are that they have had to challenge norms, and so that's become standard for them. And so today, while it's unfortunate, diversity of thought often does come just from gender or race or social mobility, because those people have had to challenge norms to get where they are, which means they're prepared to challenge the norms around the table.
You've also described, as well as diversity of thought being key to mitigating a certain amount of risk, you've also talked about how actually it should be the culture rather than a sort of regulatory stick, is how you described it, that should be encouraging that. People should feel that they want that to be the right course rather than that it has to be the right course.
Yeah, so, I think in finance many years ago, there was a lot of innovation. If you think back to the 90s and the early 2000s, innovation that I was part of, I helped to build the credit derivative business at JP Morgan, and we were excited about the innovation itself, and we were looking at what could we do, what was possible, as opposed to what should we do. So can we do it is one thing, but should we do it is a whole nother question. And so one of the dangers of constant innovation is that it becomes about what's possible as opposed to what's the right thing to do. And so that's where the question of culture really comes in. So it's not always what's possible. It's more important to think what's right. Not can we, but should we. And so that culture has to overlay all decisions that everybody makes. And it can't be the regulator. It can't be a stick. We can't just say, well, if you do the wrong thing, we're going to beat you. I mean, we all want people to think longer term, because if you make the right decisions today, then in the longer term, it's better for everybody. And that's what we're trying to get to. But it is ephemeral. It's hard to, it's not, when you're talking to people in finance, is it credit risk? Is it market risk? Is it liquidity risk? And it's not, it's something a little more fuzzy than that. So it's a little bit harder for people to grasp and really take hold of and carry forward, which I think is why it's taken some time for the industry to really transform.
Talking about the slightly unknown and what's fuzzy, what would you say are now the sort of risks that people are worrying about most as we go forward into the next 12 months? There was a poll carried out during your panel session here, and people brought up things like environment, like new companies coming into this market, new players. What would you say are the key things you're hearing from people about what they're thinking about most at the moment?
I mean, over the next 12 months, I hate to say it because we don't ever want to talk about it anymore, but Brexit clearly is a big one, and who knows what that's going to look like, and so that's still a very unknown. There's still some regulation coming up, and there's always this persistent concept of end of cycle behavior. So when is it going to be end of cycle? And a few years ago we all talked about it like it was tomorrow, and now it's gone further, and we're all talking about it as if it's much further in the future, which makes me worry that maybe it is actually now it is tomorrow. So when people are saying, oh, it's not going to be for a few years, well then it actually might be. It could be tomorrow, but when everybody's saying it's tomorrow, maybe it must be further in the future. But again, we're in an industry that, as I said in the panel, 50% of us get it right and 50% of us get it wrong every day. So we're not perfect in that predictive power.
But this conference is a great place to be having some conversations, to hear what the word on the street is, if you like. It's a very collaborative kind of environment.
Yes, well, I really enjoyed the last question in particular, because asking people what's concerning you and then to see a list of things, to be fair, nothing on that list was a surprise. So that list, it said things like, it said cyber, it said talent, it said reskilling people, it said culture, it said, I think it said also end of cycle, but there was a whole list. None of it, I think we're all thinking some of the same things. How we're prioritizing those might be different, but we're certainly all focused on all of that. And it should be concerning if we're all thinking the same thing, because we've just talked about diversity of thought. But when I look around, worrying about culture and talent management, if that's top of people's mind today, I think that's great, because that, talent management, diversity, culture, that's how we strengthen the industry and make it a better place to be and improve the media and improve the image. Take it away from Wolf of Wall Street and create a better environment for people to be in.
Great to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for sharing them, Terri.
Thank you.